Section 35 of G.K. Chesterton's newspaper columns, The New Witness, 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Scott Schermerhorn. G.K. Chesterton's newspaper columns, The New Witness, 1921, by G.K. Chesterton, Section 35. At the Sign of the World's End, Is the Parent a Paradox? By G.K. Chesterton. A magistrate recently remarked, in reference to some outbreak of petty thievery, I think, that this new lawlessness was due to the loss of parental control, and I think it reasonable, whether the magistrate thought so or not, to say that the loss of parental control is in its turn due to the increase of official control. And this is surely the more natural because it is an increase of official control over parents. The child cannot be expected to treat the parent as a parent when the rulers of the city do not even treat him as a citizen. This is especially true to the eclipse of the father by the schoolmaster, and this again is especially applicable to the particular moral problem with which the magistrate had to deal. It is stark common sense to say that the sense of private property can be learnt better in a private house than in a public school. The master must at best teach morality mainly in theory, while the mother is obliged to teach it in practice. Neither the tests, nor the temptations, nor the spiritual triumphs of this sort of sense of honor are likely to occur in an official school. No little toddling infant is likely to attempt to carry off a blackboard. He is not even very likely to want to steal a piece of chalk, but he is quite likely to want to steal a piece of cheese. He is even more likely to want to steal a piece of chocolate or of toffee. It is unlikely that the average schoolboy will be so madly devoted to his studies as to desire to run away with the map of Europe. It is perfectly possible that the average child in the nursery may wish to snatch a highly colored picture book out of the hand of another average child. It is improbable that the average schoolboy will piratically possess himself of other people's French grammars or books of geometry, though I did once know a boy who stole 27 copies of Hall and Knight's algebra. But he was not an average schoolboy. He was a very studious, scholarly, and attentive schoolboy. He was also mad. The point here, however, is that if we are going to teach children this antiquated idea of honesty at all, the people who can really teach it with reasonable grip and good nature and sense of proportion are certainly his father and mother. From various letters I have received, I fancy I have rather failed to make plain this platitude about parents. Indeed, the platitude seems actually to be regarded as a paradox. The truth is, as somebody once pointed out very effectively in the New Age, that when very simple things have once ceased to be self-evident to anyone who is sane, they always have to be set out with extreme subtlety by someone who is rather subtle. The present case probably requires somebody who is much more subtle than I am, but since I have made this criticism of the modern view of the family more than once before, both in connection with the modern view of marriage and the modern view of education, I will try once more to explain to my critics and correspondents what I mean. And since I cannot be subtle, I will try to be simple. There are two human relations which modern rulers are everywhere disposed to dissolve. They are the only two relations which ordinary people are so naturally constituted as to desire. Indeed, they are the only two relations which are in a direct sense founded on desire at all. It is only in an indirect sense that the human soul can be said to desire a green grocer. Considered as an individual, doubtless the green grocer is a man and therefore a miracle. But in the ordinary sense, we only express our longing for a green grocer as a symbol of our longing for greens. And though we have a relation to greens, it is hardly a human relation. At any rate, it is a rather one-sided relation. If it be so with symbols of commerce like the green grocer, it is still more so with symbols of compulsion like the policeman. There may be moments of crisis and high emotion when we ardently desire a policeman, or even cry aloud for one. But those are not moments of minute intellectual self-analysis, or even of a very fastidious and logical selection of words. At such times it would probably look like lingering on too fine a shade to insist that we do not, in the ultimate sense, desire a policeman, but only certain results that can only be obtained through a policeman. We do not directly desire the policeman as a thing of beauty, or feel a mysterious happiness in the mere sight of his helmets or his buttons. But a man can desire a woman as a thing of beauty, or a woman can desire a baby as a thing of beauty. And these two relations, that of a man and wife, or mother and child, are the only two recognized combinations found on this natural satisfaction with the thing itself. They are also the only two recognized combinations in capitalist civilization which that system has set out to destroy. It is essential to note that no other relation is really being attacked. There is no real effort to do without the green grocer, even if the green grocer is a profiteer. Peasants do to some extent without the green grocer, because they grow their own greens, but none of these emancipators are trying to create the particular sort of emancipation that belongs to peasants. There is no serious effort to do without the policeman on the ground that he may be a bully. I am not here arguing that he is a bully, or that I desire to do without him. I am pointing out as a fact that there is no particular probability of our curtailing his powers on the possibility of his being a bully. But there has been a marked tendency to curtail the husband's or the parent's powers on the possibility of his being a bully. And this although there is at least something in his case which tends against that possibility being a probability. It is in the ordinary human sense a mere toss-up, an equal chance, whether a green grocer or a policeman is a good man or a bad man. But it is not a pure toss-up or an equal chance whether a mother loves or hates her children. The hatred is in its nature abnormal. In a quarrel between the greengrocer and the greengrocer's assistant, the right may be on either side, but if the greengrocer's conduct is unjust, it need not be unnatural. There is present no natural bias, as in the case of maternity, no original sex attraction, as in the case of marriage. Yet we hear little in the case of capital and labor, except exhortations to promote their interdependence. And we hear little in the case of man and woman, except exhortations to promote their independence. And it is the same with the government official as with the capitalist employer. A costermonger may knock his wife needlessly about the head, and a policeman may knock the costermonger needlessly about the head. But it is unlikely that there was ever a time when the policeman went courting the costermonger with love lyrics in the style of Albert Chevalier, and it is unlikely that the policeman ever had his sleep disturbed or his dreams enriched with visions of the moke and the mother-of-pearl buttons. There is not, and there never has been, any natural attraction or tenderness between a policeman and a costermonger. Yet we assume that the relations between the coster and the copper will be all right, while we are more and more assuming that the relations between Mr. and Mrs. Henry Hawkins will be all wrong. Yet it is obvious that in the first case the right may be on one side and the might on the other, while in the second there may be something beyond might and right, which there cannot possibly be in the first. If this principle be true to some extent of husbands and wives, it is yet more manifestly true in the case of parents and children. By the ordinance of nature, the child is from the first in the care of the only people who have normally a bias in his favor. It is possible that he may be badly treated by them, but it is also possible that he may be badly treated by anybody else, by all the people who have not a bias in his favor. Of any of those people, it is in the abstract more logical to predict cruelty than it is to predict it of his parents. All that can be said about parental cruelty is that some individuals are so wicked as to be capable of it, and that can be said with even more plausibility of any other class or type or trade in the world. We may know a mother who has an unfortunate habit of boiling her baby, and in that case it will be well for the state to prevent her from doing so. But when we merely hand a baby from a mother we do not know to an official we do not know, we are in logic transferring it to a less safe position from a safer one. These are all very primary and obvious principles, and are therefore nowadays entirely neglected. Divorce and the destruction of parental control therefore are the two main modern reforms, because they both express distrust of the two natural emotions that can in some reasonable degree be trusted. It is unjust, but it is not unnatural, for a greengrocer to engage an assistant with the intention of sweating him, or a policeman to shadow a man with the intention of getting him into trouble. It is at least in a sense unnatural for a man to make love to a woman with the intention of beating her with a poker, or for a mother to bear a child with the intention of boiling him in a big pot. We should naturally infer, therefore, that human vigilance would be directed to watching and restraining the more probable rather than the less probable offense. As a matter of fact, modernity seems to ignore both the natural affection of fathers and mothers and the original sin of greengrocers and policemen. There is one thing, however, which the official classes certainly must not do. They must not complain of the chaos or criminality due to the loss of the authority of parents. That authority has been steadily undermined, not by the children, but by the officials, and though there is no reason to allege it of that particular magistrate, a good deal of it has been destroyed by the magistrates. End of section 35.